Don Quixote de la Mancha by Miguel de Cervantes is the second most successful book ever published. It was originally released in 1605, and it has sold more copies and been translated more often than any other book in history, with the exception of the Bible. Don Quixote de la Mancha was groundbreaking and has been considered the first modern novel for many reasons. For instance, it was the first book written that broke the barrier between reality and fiction. It also was the first novel to be written completely from beginning to end as a parody. Cervantes wrote a novel that broke the belief that the realist genre was only meant for shorter stories. Don Quixote de la Mancha is not only a novel full of humor, but also contains serious elements where Cervantes criticizes the society of his era in the early 16th century. He questions the feudal system of government of his time and his desire of eradicating it. It is important to take into account that Cervantes was caught between two worlds in a time where his home country, Spain, had reached its peak as the premier empire in the world, but was beginning to fall into decadence. It is important to notice that Don Quixote de la Mancha uses all of the genres known for novels in the 16th century, such as the pastoral, the sentimental, the Moorish, the picaresque, and even the exemplary. A little later, we'll talk about the mysteries and controversies that surround the story. Don Quixote de la Mancha is a novel written with sober elegance and rhetoric artifice. Sancho, Don Quixote's plucky sidekick on the adventure, is a simple, illiterate farmer but has a strong wit, deep with common sense. Cervantes continuously peppers the novel with Sancho's delightful sayings, many of which are still spoken today throughout the Spanish-speaking world. What Spanish speaker in the 21st century has not spoken or heard? Al buen entendedor, pocas palabras. To the one that understands well, few words are sufficient. Or, la codicia rompe el saco. The greedy one, who overfills the sack, always breaks it. O del dicho al hecho hay un gran trecho. There is a big difference between what someone says to what someone does. Or donde las dan las toman. What you give is what will you receive. O hoy por ti y mañana por mí. Today is for you, tomorrow is for me. All of the themes portrayed in Don Quixote de la Mancha have been studied systematically over the centuries. An infinite number of topics are addressed by Cervantes in the books such as injustice, human nature, humor, irony, love, and adventure. Honor and promise are relevant themes. The most important virtue of people of honor is to comply with their given word. Another important theme is humility, when Don Quixote says to Sancho, "Sancho, do not despair of saying that you come from simple country folk." Also, freedom is a central theme in Don Quixote de la Mancha. For instance, when Don Quixote says to Sancho, "Freedom, Sancho, is one of the most precious gifts heaven gave to men. For freedom, as well as for honor, one can and should risk one's life." From the beginning of the novel, Cervantes introduces us to a psychological universe in one of the best prologues ever written in literature. In Don Quixote de la Mancha, Cervantes brings the reader to the psychology of humanity in a way that had never been done before in a novel. From a purely psychological point of view, the madness in Don Quixote's character is completely relative, temporary, with brief intervals of lucidity. In the end, reality is how one perceives it. Cervantes shows to the reader the principle of tolerance by making them empathize with Don Quixote's behavior. Since being published in the 16th century, Don Quixote de la Mancha has been the inspiration to many well-known writers. For instance, Sigmund Freud has said that he learned Spanish exclusively for the purpose to read Don Quixote. The Russians Turgenev and Dostoevsky were very much influenced by Don Quixote de la Mancha. Milan Kundera said that his novels were a tribute to Cervantes. Kafka and Unamuno both deeply admire Cervantes. Also, many well-known painters over the years, such as Gustave Doré, Honoré d'Armières, Cezanne, Edward Hopper, Salvador Dalí, and Picasso, have all completed beautiful works dedicated to Don Quixote. Don Quixote de la Mancha is a realist novel and philosophically condemns and pokes fun at all the idealisms that man has believed in over the centuries. Throughout the story, Cervantes provides many examples of failed idealisms that ultimately reflect the reality of mankind. Don Quixote de la Mancha is a parody dedicated to those who believe that there is a world where justice prevails. Cervantes' novel is a work of disillusionment, transcendent. Sancho and Don Quixote are not opposing characters, but are complementary to each other. Sadly, Don Quixote is the first hero in a novel who strives to change the world, but ultimately fails in his quest. Yesterday, today, and always, humanity needs to learn the lessons that Cervantes teaches us. Don Quixote de la Mancha says that envy is the tool of infinite maladies and is devoid of virtue. The path of virtue is very narrow, and the path of vice is very wide and spacious. Cervantes tells us that when lust and temptation overwhelm us, that we should leave, escape. And he says, you can only triumph over the love passion by running away, and nobody should put themselves in the arms of such a powerful foe, because here only a divine force can stop such a strong enemy. Or also when Don Quixote says, "In the delay, usually is where danger inhabits." Besides the didactism, Don Quixote de la Mancha is also known for his deep moral content. Don Quixote continuously advises Sancho to have discretion and prudence. He also defends the absolute cult of knight-errantry, courage, and honor, and as everybody knows, he's devoted with complete fidelity to his chosen maiden, Dulcinea del Toboso. Don Quixote respects the dignity of all human beings he comes across in his adventures. He is the fervent defender of the weak, the defender of those who cannot defend themselves. Besides the Christian traditions portrayed in the story, there are also several theories and controversies throughout Don Quixote. During Cervantes' time, one had to be very careful with appearances and did not wish to bring attention to themselves, else they risk persecution by Spain's holy brotherhood, La Santa Hermandad, a kind of municipal militia. Cervantes camouflages himself and affirms that he is not the author of the book. He actually states in the story that he purchased the book and that the author is Sidi Hamete Benengeli. According to Mahmoud Saab, a Palestinian Hispanist, the name of Sidi Hamete Benengeli means word for word, literally, Miguel de Cervantes. Islamist experts support that in the novel there are many props of Islamic traditions. We should not forget that prior to the writing of the novel, Cervantes was once a prisoner in an Algerian jail. However, some Jewish experts believe that the novel is directed to the Marranos, which were Jewish converts. They consider Cervantes to be one of them, and for this reason, they claim that he had to suffer quietly the rigors of the Inquisition. Jewish experts also believe that Don Quixote de la Mancha has a double reading, one that contains Hermetic and Kabbalistic wisdom, where the theme of immortality is touched upon. On the other hand, they state Cervantes also offered a more superficial reading for the unenlightened reader of the masses. Still today, Don Quixote is being researched and analyzed by literary experts around the world. One such group of experts on Cervantes agree that the actual town in Spain that Don Quixote implies when he says "in a place in La Mancha" seems to be Villanueva de los Infantes instead of Argamasilla de Alba, as was previously thought. Don Quixote de la Mancha has left the world with terms that evoke the novel, such as someone being quixotic, quijotesco, being un Quixote. It refers to a person that defends their dogmas and ideals, someone whose passion and determination for a dream is so strong that they leave everything to defend his principles, although to others the dream does not make any sense at all. To conclude, we dare to guess that the madness in Don Quixote de la Mancha is a resource that Cervantes uses to express the way of humanity. As very well Unamuno said, Cervantes brought Don Quixote out of the souls of his people and also from all humanity.